This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with amazing humans who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and my guest today is Feyzi Fatehi, a true visionary and Silicon Valley veteran. He's a recipient of the prestigious CODiE Lifetime Achievement Award and chairman and CEO of Corent Technology, where he's spearheading the next big tech disruption through automated SaaS enablement, revolutionizing industries. Feyzi's expertise extends to tech innovation, entrepreneurism, and fostering intrapreneurship, evident in his groundbreaking book, Democratizing SaaS. We're going to discuss how a kid from Iran became a star in Silicon Valley, the power of software as a service, and the message he received from Steve Jobs that lit a fire in his entrepreneurial journey. Feyzi, how you doing?
Excellent. How are you, Joe?
I'm quite excellent as well, sir. Thank you very much for joining me today. And I want to start with an awkward and sort of random thought, and that is libraries. Me, as a middle-aged man, I think I go to the library more now than I was when I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, I was like, oh, the library's lame. I don't go to the library. And now as an adult who, full disclosure, loves to read but doesn't like clutter, me and my wife don't like having books stacked up and collecting dust. We love going to the library and reading books. And the reason I bring this up is, from what I understand, your love for books and writing and leadership started in a library. Is that correct?
That's correct. When I started my high school, the principal asked me to be the librarian in high school. And that was a position of privilege and also having access to tons of books. So that's how I started falling in love with books.
And so the idea of you being invited to be the librarian as a kid, now in America, that sounds kind of strange because mostly librarians are the cliche middle-aged or retiree woman who, has like the tiny reading glasses. So can you give us a little bit of the dynamic as to how they chose you and how that worked?
There was a librarian who had some health problems, and we didn't know when he would come back. And there was no backup, and it was a small library. And I keep inquiring from the principal, when are we opening the library? And I think he got frustrated with me. He gave me the key. He said, here we go. You're the librarian. Open it up during recess. And that's how I became the librarian. And the guy never came back. And they said he's doing a good job, and maybe they were cheap. It was free labor. Who knows? Yeah, that was my first leadership responsibility.
Wow, that's so funny. And when they offered you this, I know it's kind of silly to look back at it so many years later, but did you realize, you said the word responsibility, did you realize the weight of your responsibility taking over this role of a grown person?
Absolutely not. I was just a kid, and it gave me a status. I like it, believe it or not. I don't want to deny. I had a status, and I had an office with a key. So probably the only one with a private office in high school, that was me. So I enjoyed it. At the same time, it was a little geeky because everybody was playing during the recess and I was the librarian. But it is what it is. Here we are.
And so now, obviously, Iran's been in the news for a long time. But I think for most Americans, they think of Iran as, a country that's probably at war with us, deserts and all this stuff. But tell me about you growing up, because from what I understand, the high school you went to was pretty prestigious. And for most Americans think like, wait, there's a prestigious high school in Iran? How does this, can you explain what your childhood was like?
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Academically, it was very advanced. And the country, by the way, has a very diverse set of nature, from beautiful beaches to forests, to skiing, to climbing, and deserts as well. So a lot of people don't know that because we don't teach geography.
They don't. Crazy. That's basically like if you said that to someone right now that Iran has beaches, they'd be like, "What? What's going on?"
Actually, when I heard when the revolution happened, Club Med was at the middle of opening two clubs in Iran at the Caspian Sea.
No way!
They abandoned it, and about 10 years ago, I heard American Express was hosting some tours in Iran with some high-end Silicon Valley people, but they kept it very quiet because the nature, I haven't explored it because when I left, I was 15. But I'm just like another American looking back. but had the opportunity to live there for a while and enjoy the mountains, the beaches, and the forest. The forest that rains, 23 hours a day, nonstop almost. But it's a country of poetry, literature, science. I mean, I hear some of the first surgeries happened in universities in Iran 2,500 years ago. So, it's a different persona that generally people see in the news clips.
No, and you are like blowing my mind. I feel like we're like in a multiverse where imagining the Tehran Club Med, like, I mean, it sounds like a different like universe we're living in. It's phenomenal. Thank you for indulging me. Thank you, because I'm always curious about other places that I've never been to, and obviously where our life is sort of filtered through what we see on social media and in the news. So thank you very much for sharing that. So tell me about, you said 15 years old, you came to the States. How did that, tell me about that jump.
Yeah, when I was 15, I had the privilege of attending a prep school at Cambridge, England. And for a few weeks, I had an American roommate who educated me about the American education system, which allows you to choose your own classes. And if you don't like one, you can drop it. And my jaw dropped. I said, oh my God, that's
sort of like me hearing about a Club Med in Iran. Right?
Yeah, exactly. You can drop a class. That was like the most revolutionary idea I've ever imagined, let alone here. And that moment was the first moment I said, oh man, I'm an American. That's just so aligned, resonates so well. And the following year, I was in Princeton, at Hunt School of Princeton, and made it to the top of the junior class. And then I, believe it or not, graduated from Norman High, Norman, Oklahoma. Again, a National Honor Society led me to UT Austin and became the first total solar engineer in the US, as far as I know. And I designed the program and graduated from it, which combined mechanical, electrical, and architecture combined. And when I graduated, the federal government changed. They decided we don't need solar. There are plenty of oil. We'll
Sure.
go get it.
Yeah.
And so the whole solar died based on changing the tax code. So here I am, immigrant, just graduated, as a very exciting thing to do. And I was immediately out of a job market. And so I studied computer sciences for my master's, Joe. And then was hired in Silicon Valley, invented the fastest database in the world 3 years later, and then ran into Steve Jobs, and the rest is history.
You yada-yada'd a lot there, so I want to go back slightly. Tell me about when you decided to go get your master's in computer engineering. Give us a time frame in terms of like what year was this around, so folks can understand what was going on in the world of Silicon Valley at the time.
It was 86. That was the middle of the 80s, and that was the years that Santa Clara Valley transformed to be Silicon Valley. That was those transformational years. Apple was just being formed, and to some degree, Silicon Valley was transforming to become a software, from silicon hardware to become a software introduction. So a lot of changes was going on during the 80s, and of course till the middle of the 90s when the browser was invented. And then late 90s, early 2000, cloud was invented. And then somewhere in the middle, SaaS. A lot of people confuse SaaS and cloud. And SaaS was first, software as a service. And then came cloud. The technology behind cloud was invented, which is a hypervisor. And then we say, yeah, it's nice to deliver your SaaS on top of the cloud. But cloud is not SaaS, SaaS is not cloud. And that was one of the reasons I wrote the book.
Interesting. All right, cool. We're going to get into the SaaS of it all, but there's too much here that I don't want to get by. So it's the 80s. A lot has been said about Silicon Valley, the way it started and what it's become now. But for folks who did not live through that and we're seeing what's happening now, does it blow your mind to see how far it's come to what it was? Like you said, back in the day, they were making hardware, it was IBM, and then obviously the Microsofts of the world and Apple and all that. But can you try to describe just the stark difference as to what it was then and what it is now?
That's a great question. So we didn't think about it as Silicon Valley in a sense. I was just a kid, graduated from college. You're in beautiful California. You're playing tennis. You're a member of a Sierra club. You go hiking, get into scuba diving, and hiking the Golden Gate and then Lake Tahoe, Yosemite. You're in the nature intersection with invention and innovation. It was inventing and innovating, two separate things, by the way, and a lot of people confuse the two. It was hot. And then a new trend, like people said, have you invented anything? Do you have a patent? Yeah, I do. Invented the fastest database in the world. So, I can do even better. I did X, Y, and Z, and so on. And one thing that was new as an emerging thing was entrepreneurship. And probably inspired by the likes of Steve Jobs, for example, and perhaps, Bill Gates and others that took an a traditional path to their career. And schools, like when I did my MBA part-time as I was working, they created a track for entrepreneurship, but nobody explained it. Either you got it off campus or on campus you didn't get it, because either you sign up or not sign up. Nobody says, let's sit down, let me just educate you about some new trends that are happening. So there are people who got this entrepreneurship on top of their invention, innovation trend, or didn't. And that, I think, differentiated the billionaires from the millionaires. People who got that and people who didn't.
It's so funny. It's so funny they say that, Feyzi, because I have this running joke on the podcast when I speak to entrepreneurs is when I was a kid, so as a Generation Xer, the word entrepreneur, the joke used to be, oh, you're an entrepreneur. What are you, unemployed? But now you saw how the word entrepreneurship was sort of reinvented. Entrepreneurs have been around since the industrial age, since the beginning of time, honestly. But the idea of entrepreneurship as sort of a label or something that you would proudly wear was not a thing till Silicon Valley just changed everything. So tell me about that word entrepreneurship, and when did you realize that entrepreneurship was sort of the path that you were taking? Because it sounds like you sort of stumbled into it.
Yeah. Very true. So I was one of those people who didn't get it and nobody explained it. So I did my traditional business school, in a sense, and business schools trained people, educated people to be a better corporate employee. You get your MBA, you get a promotion, you become a product manager, you become a marketing manager. And all the education was to make you a better corporate employee, except for that entrepreneurship class that nobody explained to us what it was and how do you spell it and whatever. So my entrance into entrepreneurship was by coming across people like Steve Jobs and others, which still was an enigma. Like, what is going on? The guy got fired from his own company. Like, what is going on here? And we are enhancing our careers and going up the ladder. And the other part was my, without knowing it explicitly, my tendencies towards leadership. And again, nobody was talking about leadership. It was all about better management. You're a better manager. You listen to people and you do your meeting notes and take people to beer bash once in a while. It's a good manager, as opposed to leadership. So I did have those tendencies to lead because I got bored with business as usual. I did crazy stuff, and the management recognized it and allowed me to play. So in that sense, looking back, I was something different. And there was another guy that resembled me, and the Dutch guy. The word didn't exist for us. Later on, they created the word intrapreneur. So we were entrepreneur within the big corporations, and the big managers would give us lots of freedom. I had almost unlimited travel budget, etc., to go and create new stuff. One of the things was there was this company in Germany that we hear they do some good stuff. Somebody said, oh, just fly to Germany and spend some time with them, figure out what they do. The next day I'm on a flight, I'm in Heidelberg, then in Waldorf, meet this guy who was the head of this company, a small company at the middle of farmland, flat farmland. All of a sudden there's a building. There is, at that time, look at it, older gentleman. Well, this was Hasso Plattner, the CEO of SAP. And he was happy to see me. And he said, yes, we want to come to the US. Can you help? I said, yeah, I can help. I know a real estate agent can get you a house. Got a house in Portola Valley. I can get you an office. And I'm in the partnerships and alliances. Can you give us a budget to buy workstation? Yeah, I have a budget. I can give 500 for free as long as you test. Okay, here's a deal. So we were making all those things from the position of being an intrapreneur. There are friends at that time who saw the light and left HP. Some of them went to other entrepreneurial companies like Microsoft that became a big company. But at that point, they were still younger, entrepreneurial, not as established. And some went, for example, a good friend of mine, Jeff, went to Netscape. So go to the ultimate startup at that point, graduated with the same degrees, but saw the light. Maybe at the reception at the party, met someone who told them something, changed the entire direction of their life. So those were stuff that was going on at that time.
That's great. That's so cool. I mean, Feyzi, I'm getting Forrest Gump vibes from you of like traveling to Germany and like running into the guy who runs SAP. That's such a great story.
He wasn't as famous then.
Right. Right. But looking back now, like, wow, that's pretty amazing. So you mentioned Jobs a couple times. Tell me about the impact he's had on you and what you're doing today, because I know Steve is sort of regarded as this mythical creature. Obviously we know a lot more about him and the fact that as great a leader he wasn't a great leader. So tell me about what kind of sort of imprint he left in you.
Yeah, a huge one, but it took me about 8 to 10 years to realize it. He planted the seed. It was 1990 at Stanford campus. We were several people waiting for him to come and chat with us. And he was late, and he was late, and he was late, and most people left. There were just a few of us. I said, I don't have anything planned. Let's wait. And then he showed up very casually, and we were in a classroom, empty classroom, and then he sat on the actual table, the professor's table. I clearly remember him, and I started chatting. The bottom line of it was, you repeated the word fire in the belly, to the best of my knowledge, 6 times in like 10 minutes. Where is that fire in the belly, you guys? Just want to get a fancy degree, working for a fancy company, flying, business class, first class around the world. But where is that fire in the belly? And he expanded. He said, when you find the fire in the belly and throw yourself at it, your entire life would change. The meaning of life would change. You have a purpose. You have a direction. You have a mission to be on. And at that point, I was saying, you know what? I'm doing well. I'm getting promoted, huge budgets, traveling the world, making things happen, finishing my MBA. And this nice guy got fired from his own company, and he's lecturing us about what to do, what not to do. It took a while to process that. And towards the late 90s, I got that uneasiness myself. That where is that fire in the belly? I'm okay. I got some check marks, some keynote speeches here at this conference, that conference, getting promoted, and some accolades. But internally, how am I grounded? Am I really on a mission? What is the meaning of innovation to me? And then I realized, oh my God, technology and innovation would have significant ramifications, positive impact, the impact of technology in job creation, in healthcare, in education, in environment. So, oh my God, this innovation and technology is well connected and related to the things that I aspire, I value. And at that point, the entire meaning of work and life and everything, there was a convergence of work and technology with who I am, what my values are, and what I value in life. And that was the time that I decided, you know what, I want to go experience a true entrepreneurship above and beyond intrapreneurship. And I just left all my stock options, millions of dollars on the table, left, and I've never looked back. And it's been a journey. And in the book, at the end, I have these pages of pictures that with pictures, year 79, then 82, then 89, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The chronicle 3 decades of being a kid in a candy store, enjoying it, and personally develop myself and enjoy the journey of the technology and the personal journey that have been pretty much converged.
Wow. That's great. What a great story. Another great story. And so that's sort of what led you down the path of SaaS and Corent. So I'll be honest, full disclosure with you, Feyzi, before I started doing business podcasts 4 or 5 years ago, I had no idea what SaaS meant. Like literally, I'd seen it.
You're a normal person. You're not supposed to know it.
Well, I know about that. My wife would disagree with you, Feyzi. But the idea of SaaS, software as a service, for the lay person who's not involved in technology, it's just something that comes up. And obviously, you were in that world. You were embedded. You knew all about it. So can you tell me, and without getting too technical, because it'll go over my head, and I don't want to, maybe somebody else's, but why did you focus in on SaaS? You mentioned the SaaS cloud dynamic that was going on there, but why did you see like that was sort of like your pinpoint? That was your in for entrepreneurship.
So when I left HP, I joined the company, and our goal was, in a sense, to democratize SaaS. And at that time, the word SaaS did not exist. It was an ASP, application service provider. And the assumption was that there will be hundreds of application service providers individually providing a specific service, like CRM, customer relationship management, like education, healthcare, you name it. And it becomes unmanageable. Why don't we build a company to aggregate these different services, software services? The analogy would be to become the cable company for all these television channels, to become the aggregator of certain software as a service, so we can manage it. People come to us and subscribe to any channel they wanted, and then we deliver those channels to them. That was the vision, in a sense, to make it easy for people to have access to SaaS, one-stop shop, 1-800 number to call to get their service, and so on. Except that we missed something. As it happened, everybody, the industry, discovered it was not easy to transform a regular software into software as a service. And that epiphany, that discovery, became an incentive for me to go see whether we can figure it out, whether we can make it easy to build a SaaS operating system, so that if somebody has a software, they can plug it in, and that software becomes software as a service, versus the 5 years or 3 years, millions of dollars they need to spend to develop the as-a-service capabilities for their software. One other analogy is to become the Netflix for the software industry. What Netflix is to the movie industry, we become the Netflix for the software industry. Nowadays, people build their movie, win an Academy Award, and drop it into Netflix, and instantly the world have access to it. Why not people put 100% of their effort in building their own software, whether it's AI, whether it's healthcare, whatever it is, instead of every single software company reinvents the wheel and create their own as a service. Like every movie producer creates their own Netflix. Doesn't make sense, is not efficient. So in a sense, we became the Netflix for the software industry. And that's how the whole idea started. And then we discovered the glitch, and then we worked on the glitch. The glitch took a lot longer than expected, but now we have it figured out. And as you may have heard, we just announced with AWS several weeks ago that we are partnering to go and ushering a new chapter in the cloud industry called SaaS 2.0.
Wow. And before we get to that, because I want to talk about that, Democratizing SaaS is the name of the book, and you mentioned it here today. Can you unpeel that a little bit for me in terms of what do you mean by democratizing SaaS? Is there what's the best way to explain that, Feyzi?
So to give access to people, the people who don't have connections with venture capital, they don't have connections with top chief technology officers, top talent programmers to come in. They just have an idea about a software. A few weeks ago, I was talking to this lady. She has a great idea to revolutionize the volunteerism for senior living centers, to recruit the volunteers, to train the volunteers, to schedule their times, to assign different patients to those volunteers based on several criteria, etc., etc., etc. So the idea for the software is there, and it's easy, relatively easy to build it, but transforming it to an efficient, elastic software as a service would take an extra 3 years and millions of dollars. Why not enable her to run this great service, SaaS offer, within a couple of days to a couple of weeks? And that's democratization of SaaS. That's how we are democratizing SaaS, by liberating a lot of people with ideas, or even taking an existing open source solution, plug it into SaaS ops, and voila, you're offering it to the world at an affordable price, and people have access to it. And by the way, you make a good living offering that service.
Nice. Very well done. It sounds like you've talked about this before. This is not the first time you've
twice.
Twice. And so you mentioned the AWS deal. Now, again, now a person in a tech company, from what I understand, Feyzi, Amazon, they're a really big company. They're doing pretty well. Why do they need to work with you?
Because we complement what they do. They have done a fantastic job creating the cloud itself. And cloud is nothing but infrastructure as a service. The storage as a service, computing as a service, networking as a service, database as a service. They have done a first-class job in doing that. Now, by adding software as a service, enablement of software as a service, then that entire investment that's been made for years comes to fruition in a way that nobody imagined would be even possible, by creating a new generation of SaaS entrepreneurs running their solution on AWS in a seamless fashion. It's good for the society, good for the community, and for a greater good. Everybody wins.
Okay, cool. All right, you sold me. All right, so since I am legally obligated to ask you this question, because this is a business podcast, I'm legally obligated to ask you about AI. I'll get arrested. The cops are going to knock down this door if I don't ask you about AI. Tell me how AI and SaaS work together in perfect harmony, as I think that was a Stevie Wonder song. But yeah, how does AI and SaaS work together?
They work beautifully together, the same way that SaaS works with blockchain technology. SaaS works with different automation technologies, security, cybersecurity technologies. The same way AI adds a new dimension to software, and we make that software be delivered as a service. So one plan we have is go after thousands of AI startups that they don't have time nor patience to do their as a service. We say you put 100% of your effort on delivering your AI, whether it's helping with a doctor better diagnose a patient, or whether automating a process that instead of 3 days somebody receiving their medicine, they get it in 2 hours because there is better intelligence behind distribution. You focus on your magic, we focus on our magic. It's like somebody, please make that great movie that wins the Academy Award. Don't worry, we distribute it for you. That's the Netflix idea. So AI is the same. AI is doing things better, faster, and more intelligently in so many ways. And that becomes a better software, and we enable that software to be delivered as a service in an automated fashion.
Nice. And for someone who's basically born and bred in Silicon Valley, I would love to get your take on, I'm old enough to remember when the metaverse was going to be the next big thing. Times have changed. People have now forgotten about it, and AI has become top of mind for everyone in and outside the tech industry. Why is it that you think there's these paradigm shifting technologies like AI that take off and just become a runaway freight train, but then you see instances, whether it's wearables, like glasses that have never really taken off, and for the example of metaverse, why do you think some technologies are able to sort of not just be a flash in the pan, but for something that has longevity and becomes a major part of the industry?
Great question. In my humble opinion, some technologies that hit the ground running, it's because the ecosystem for that technology exists. For example, if you remember Newton was the grandfather or grandmother of iPhone. When it came out, it was ahead of its time. The ecosystem for it didn't exist. The camera wasn't there. The music wasn't there. What makes iPhone was not there. It has this geeky pen to write on the screen and it would translate it. The overall idea was good, but the ecosystem around it wasn't ready yet. But it took another 10 years and boom, it took off. So some of these technologies, as a point solution, they're great, like some of the glasses you were mentioning, but within the context of an ecosystem, they're not ready yet. And generally, all it takes is one popular application of the technology that would make the technology take off. And sometimes that one initial application of technology is not readily there, and people insist on the technology itself rather than how it would make life better. And for Apple was not taking off until desktop publishing became the first application for Macintosh that changed the world. But they found that they call it the bowling alley. The bowling alley was desktop publishing out of the 2 million other things you can do with Macintosh. And that saved the day for Apple.
Wow, that's great. And what a great analogy brought there, because I think, people like to shit on the metaverse, and I do too, but it's funny because it's you explained it, like no one can find an application where it would work, or not yet anyway, because I think there was also confusion with it, because we were like, wait, so do you have to have VR? Do you not VR? Does it have anything to do with Web 3.0? So I think there was more confusion to it, whereas AI, I think the one thing that really broke through was the application of it, that literally anyone who's connected to the internet could use AI. And obviously there's other levels of AR with the large language models and what we can do with it, but just the simplicity of like my mother being able to use ChatGPT, whereas my mother would not be able to access the metaverse or Web 3.0. So it's I never thought of it that way. So thank you very much for bringing it down that way.
ChatGPT was the application that made AI pop. AI has been around for many years, but it took one application of AI that all of a sudden everyone start getting it.
Wow. So you're saying there's hope for the metaverse? You think it's got a chance?
100%.
Well, Feyzi, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. The book is called Democratizing SaaS. Who's the book for as we go? Who needs to read your book?
I would like to say everyone. But the book has multiple constituencies. Number one, software vendors. People who are creating a software and they want to sell it to other organizational companies. We call it B2B, business to business. This would save them millions of dollars in years before they come to market. The other space for it is startups. People who graduated from college, they can just pick an open source solution that resonates with them and plug it into SaaS ops that the book explains. And they're in charge of their own company. They have their own products. They can go to market in an amazing way. Another constituency for the book are Global 2000 corporations. These companies on average have developed 1,000 internal applications to run their business. So 1,000 times 2,000, Global 2000, is 2 million. 2 million applications are developed with some of the best engineers in the world. And guess how many companies are using each? one. Why not plug some of these applications that are not totally secret sauce for a company and make it available, democratize it for the rest of the world? Imagine if some logistics applications from FedEx or some inventory management from Walmart are SaaS enabled. The world want to use them. But the problem is it takes years to SaaS enable them. And this gentleman who was the head of cloud strategy for Deloitte said, if corporations do this, the value, the valuation, the market cap of the subsidiary they create to deliver this software, this enterprise software out as a service to public, within 3 to 5 years would exceed the market cap of the corporation itself because of the true value they offer. It's going to revolutionize, and we have the missing link here, which is SaaS Ops. In an automated way, SaaS enable these massive corporate assets and bring them to life. How is that for value creation and shareholder value creation?
Not bad for a librarian. Yeah, you've had a pretty good run, Feyzi. I really appreciate the conversation, dropping all those stories and knowledge bombs on me. Thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure.
And that'll do it for another Forbes Books podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. You can always connect with me on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila or on TikTok at jpardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.